Hi, I'm Kenny Anderson, Director of Multicultural Affairs for the City of Huntsville, and welcome to Impact. Each week we bring you informative stories about things that are happening right here in this community, and today will be no different. The National Association of Real Estate Brokers has as its mission reimagining the dream of home ownership through advocacy, activism, and action. Today we have two individuals who are working with this organization at the local level, and they're going to tell us all that we need to know about this important initiative. April Park is president of the local chapter of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Kenny. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. And you're joined by Sandra Brazelton. She's an executive board member of the same organization. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much. Very honored.
It's great to have you both here. And of course, I'm looking forward to learning a lot today because I'm not quite as familiar with the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. So along with me and everyone else that's wondering right now, give us a little synopsis of what this organization is.
Okay, great. The National Association of Real Estate Brokers is actually a minority trade association, and it was birthed out of a need of necessity. Back in 1939, during that time, real estate agents that were African American could not become members of the National Association of Realtors, nor could they become members of the multi-listing system, which everyone knows as the MLS system. So in Atlanta, we had a few brokers got together and they involved themselves with other brokers throughout the United States, and they realized that they weren't the only ones having this issue. So in 1947, the chapter was actually formed, or the association was formed, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, otherwise known as NAREB for short, came about. And we have a local chapter here, Huntsville. It's National Association of Real Estate Brokers, Huntsville, or NAREB Huntsville. Our primary focus is democracy and housing, and helping real estate agents, educating them and helping them educate themselves as it pertains to real estate issues.
And what do you mean by democracy and housing?
Just equality. Over time, it's just been known that Blacks had a tendency to be cut out of fair housing, as it pertaining things like fair housing. If you were a Black agent, you may not have necessarily gotten the business that some of our counterparts would have gotten. So there was a lot of redlining that took place. And then as consumers, oftentimes interest rates were extremely high, making it very challenging and difficult for Blacks to own or obtain a home.
Yeah. So what has it meant to have this organization as an organization of advocates for the homeowner? I know that, I'm just going to keep it real for a minute. Yeah, I bought a home before, but I don't always think of my realtor as my friend. I know I should, but you know what, the realtor's in business. And I'm looking for the best deal I can get, but the realtor's in business. But at the same time, I'm hoping that person is an advocate for me. And that if I'm going out in the market to purchase a home, that person's going to be able to provide some guidance and direction for me. I know that's not always the case. With this organization, it is, I'm sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But that's not always the case. So just talk to me a little bit about what it means to have this organization at the local level where you're doing business in a community where people are interested in buying homes.
Well, we know that successful home ownership is the basis for all wealth. So it affects business, it affects economics. So to the extent that we can get people educated on the value of home ownership, the representation that you talked about is very important in the state of Alabama because we are one of the only buyer beware states in the union. So you can have professional representation that they advocate specifically for you as opposed to a seller agent who represents that seller. Those lines have kind of been fuzzied through the years, and so through our education part of it, we're helping shift that awareness so that you can have someone who really understands you, not only just economically, emotionally, financially, and can help you build wealth with real estate. We have a very important role to play, not only in helping you build wealth, but in protecting your wealth.
Yeah, so being a broker is more than just selling homes. It's the education piece,
Counseling,
which is huge.
yes, sure.
Yeah.
In fact, we've already began doing home buyer workshops within the community so that we can educate buyers, let them know and understand that they do have choices, and more importantly, we're going into the marketplace letting them know that we are their advocates. We do care for them, and we're not just looking out for our own best interests.
Right.
So,
I'm wondering, because I'm hearing this about millennials. We live in this generation of young people who are transitional. They aren't necessarily interested in buying a home. My generation, American dream was to have that home and, all the other things that came along with that. But now millennials have a different mindset. I wonder how that has had an impact on the world of real estate.
Yeah, they're very powerful, but they're going to stay in school a lot longer,
Yes.
and they're going to stay at home a lot longer, which means when they get themselves together, they're not necessarily going to be ready for a first-time home as opposed to most traditional first-time homeowners. They're going to be what we would call maybe a second home or third home. But they represent a very large market for us, and it is very important that we reach them so they can make decisions to prepare them for home ownership and wealth building now.
I think this would be a great opportunity to talk about an initiative nationally that the National Association of Real Estate Brokers is doing. There's something called the Sheba Report, the State of Housing in Black America. And in that report, it was revealed that though the real estate market is on the rise, there is a 40% gap between white, non-Hispanic buyers and blacks, which answers part of what you asked. That means blacks are renting. We understand that, and I think we all can agree that home ownership is a part of building wealth. So one of our main initiatives as a national association is to bring about the awareness of the importance of owning a home so that you can have wealth for not only yourself, but future generations as well.
Yeah.
So
I wonder also, because this whole notion of owning a home is not something that is, I want to be real careful with this because I don't want to impugn anybody that has done this, but in the community that I grew up in, for example, I'll use myself, as kids, we were not really taught about owning a home. For one, we grew up in public housing, so it wasn't like the goal wasn't home ownership. We wanted a place, but we didn't want to stay in public housing either,
Right.
but out of necessity, that's where we were. But the reality was that this whole notion of educational seminars and access to understanding and information about owning a home just wasn't there. So what I see happening to a lot of young people is then they go off to college. They have not a clue about what happens next. And in a very, very generic sense, perhaps, don't have the basic fundamental tools that it takes to moving forward into home ownership, which includes things like having a good credit score, and et cetera, et cetera. What are you all doing with the college student?
well, we haven't actually moved over into the college student yet, but that is part of our goals during the third quarter of this year. With our first home buying seminar that we did, we called it Building Wealth Through Home Ownership. And fortunately for us, we did reach out directly to a group of millennials. Millennials.
Yeah, I know. I do the same thing. For me.
Tongue twister. But what we did was we broke our home buying sessions down into 3 series. The first one we address shifting of the mindset, because we had to get in their heads and let them see another way of doing things. Then we tackled the home building process, but then we talked about credit issues and the importance of using just the different loan products, the whole 9 yards. So we talked about FICO scores, so we were hitting on that, kind of putting it all together for them so that they could understand and get the big picture.
Sure, just in a very basic sense. I know it's individually ascertained, but what's a good credit score for a first-time homeowner?
I would say anywhere between 640 is a start, and over the past 30 years I've been in business, that bar has been raised. So this is really prime buying time, and I understand what you were talking about initially because homeownership is a pretty new phenomenon when you think about us as a people. When I think back 2 generations, my grandparents were slaves. So the education, but the part of it that we really are filling the gap in is a desire. We want to initiate that desire to own your own home, to build wealth with home ownership, to be able to stabilize your shelter expense.
Yes.
Because if you don't, the rent is going to continue to go up and you're going to find yourself shut out of home ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I was a rent at one time. I don't even want to begin to add up
I know.
what I paid in rent over those years. I just kind of think of it as a bad dream. And now I've moved ahead.
One of the challenges with the millennials is they want it now.
Yeah.
And so if we can say, take your first home, let it be affordable for you, or whatever that is, and then keep it for investment and continue to build wealth that way. So there's so many solutions to help them get on a path to home ownership.
You make a great point because just because you qualify for a certain amount of money to purchase a home, you don't have to go to the top level of that.
No,
you can
absolutely.
find something that really works within your means, and that's really where you should be. I know you all have some events coming up. I know we just have a few minutes left, but I did want to at least give you a chance to share some information about these upcoming events that people can perhaps be a part of, with the focus being building Black wealth through home ownership.
Well, actually, the month of April is Fair Housing Month. And what NAREB is doing on a national level is holding a Realtist Week, because we as members of NAREB are called Realtist. And it's April the 23rd through the 29th. So we're going to do a few events here locally on April the 22nd, because we have quite a bit of Adventists in the area, and we want to recognize that. We'll actually be having a day of worship at the Madison Mission Seventh-day Adventist Church. And then on April the 25th, we'll be having a day of advocacy. That's going to be a town hall event. We'll have a great speaker there, Mark Anderson. Would you like to give a little bit of information
just
about the
briefly, because
panel?
we're running short on time.
Okay, all right. So we're inviting all the change makers to make the mind shift. It's going to be at the campus at the McKee Business and Technology Building at Oakwood University, Tuesday the 25th. We want everybody to come out at 6:30 and be a solution for us being able to help build wealth through home ownership.
All right. And I know you have a day of service in the community on the 27th, and also May 6th, a community wealth building day called Bites and Bites. And that, of course, is a big event that
That's
you want
going
to
to
be
be
able to focus
huge. That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
That's when we have real estate vendors as well as food vendors, because people like to eat.
on.
Right.
You do.
So we'll be training real estate agents on technology, and then also we will be educating the consumer. One of the interesting twists that we're going to do there is teach about resumes and how to properly dress for a job interview, plus touch bases on how home buying process. And then I think that's pretty much it. We're just going to have a great time.
Yes.
Sounds like a wonderful time. If people want more information, how can they get more information?
Yes, they can reach out to me at aprilparker@usa.com. And then we're also going to have a Facebook page that we'll be able to give them that information as well at a later date.
All right. April Parker, she's president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers Huntsville chapter.
Yes.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.
All right. And Sandra Brazelton is an executive board member. We're glad to have her here as well.
Always. Thank you.
All right. We want to thank you for being a part of our conversation, and we hope that you've learned a lot about this organization today and the information that we're sharing on the screen that can perhaps help you learn more about what's still the American dream, and that's home ownership. We hope that you also will like our Facebook page, which is Impact with Kenny Anderson, where you can see a video of the show that you just watched, as well as images of what happens once the camera stops rolling. For Impact, I'm Kenny Anderson. Hope you have a great day.